Module 1, Arts in the Philippines. After going through this module, you are expected to, number 1, define contemporary arts. Number 2, describe the art forms from the various regions through the development of the Philippine arts. And number 3, describe various contemporary art forms from the regions based on the elements and principles of art. Art before and then has been described as a human activity involving creativity and human skills. However, if you were to agree, art is everywhere. Art could be you. Art could be him. It could be her. It could be anything, and it could be anyone. Well, you get the gist of it. However, all that you need to know is that art is not only confined to what is seen. Art involves the use of all our physical senses to appreciate it. And as diverse art can be, so does too the Philippine arts. How did the Philippine art came to be what it is now in the present? First off, the development of the Philippine arts came through 3 different major traditions. The first one being the ethnic tradition, the second being the Spanish colonial tradition, and lastly the American colonial and contemporary arts traditions. Even before the colonization, the Philippines already had an art form which we call indigenous arts. In the era of the indigenous art forms were primarily influenced by the area where our ancestors prospered, specifically where they lived. However, the Spanish who came to colonize our country replaced indigenous art with Western arts. In order to further understand these 3 major traditions, let us thoroughly explore each and every one of these. Ethnic tradition. The term ethnic refers to a race or large group of people following a common racial, national, religious, linguistic, or cultural heritage. It also refers to a particular race or group of people possessing a typical culture which is entirely distinct from the main usual culture of a particular country. Ethnic art may refer to the art of indigenous people making use of traditional methods and aesthetics. The purpose of ethnic art may usually be functional or ritual. Art forms are primarily influenced by the geographical location and the experiences of the Filipinos. In this time, the purpose of arts is integral to life. Arts reflected the pagan beliefs and practices everyday activity such as fishing and farming and specific decorative art pattern to the community. The Philippines had ethnic art that was a product of the earlier society. Arts in this time were for ritual purpose or for everyday use only. As local communities were established, art starts to go beyond mere craft. Stone weapons, jewelry, carvings made of metal, wood, stone, and glass are examples of artwork produced by groups of people who had similar identities and personalities. Indigenous people used just their naked hands and creative minds to make these pieces. Examples of artworks from the ethnic tradition. Number 1. Clay tools, Old Stone Age. Clay tools and cobble tools were the earliest implements made during the Paleolithic period or the Old Stone Age. Tools were used as knives and scrapers. The proof of the earliest man's presence was recovered from a ranch site in the Cagayan province. Two flake tools dated about 9 million years, the oldest man-made object. Flake tools used during the Paleolithic age dated about 16,000 to 8,000 BC, which were found in the Laurenti Cave in Penablanca, Cagayan. Stone tools were also unearthed in Bolobok Cave. Number 2. Shell bracelets and pendants. Neolithic. Shells were fashioned into tools as well as ornaments. The oldest known ornaments made from conch shells were found in the nearly 1960s in the grave of an adult male in Vigan Cave in Palawan. A shell disc with a hole in the center was found next to his right ear, and a disc with a hole by the edge was found on his chest. The shell ornaments were dated 4,854 BC. Ocular. Ocular is the term for rectilinear and curvilinear plant-based designs and folk motifs that can be usually found among the Moro and Lumix people of the southern Philippines, as well as parts of Sabah. Number 4. Palangay or Butuan boat. Prehistoric boats were recovered in Butuan, Agusan del Norte in 1978. There are 9 existing prehistoric boats. The Butuan boat is an edge-peg plank type of boat that is built to withstand long-distance voyages. The boat can seat 25 people. Early merchants purchased goods from foreign traders and sailed the small waterways, redistributing the commodities to remote communities in the archipelago. The presence of glass beads and metals in the sites where the boats were discovered shows that Philippine coastal communities were active in Asian maritime trade during that time. Evidence of a flourishing maritime trade placed the early Filipino seamanship and boat-building skill on equal footing with the other Asian countries. Angono Petroglyphs. The earliest prehistoric rock drawings studied extensively were found at the boundary of Angono and Binangonan, Rizal Province. It was discovered by the national artist Carlos Francisco in 1965. The site is a rock shelter or a shallow cave about 63 meters wide, 8 meters deep, and 5 meters at its highest point. 127 human figures scattered on the wall were made by engraving lines using a piece of stone on the surface of the rock shelter. The cuts vary from 10 centimeters down to faint lines figures. The figures consist of circular heads, with or without necks, set on a rectangular or V-shaped body. The linear arms and legs are usually flexed. Some incisions on the rock wall are triangles, rectangles, and circles. Rock art is closely linked with the system of belief of a particular group of people. It is symbolic, not decorative. Manunggul jar. The cultural treasure found in the early 1960s in Manunggul Cave, Lipon Point, Palawan is a secondary burial jar. The upper portion of the jar, as well as the cover, is incised with curvilinear skull designs and painted with natural iron or hematite. On top of the jar cover, or a lid, is a boat with 2 human figures, representing 2 souls on a voyage to the afterlife. The boatman is seated behind a figure whose hands are crossed on the chest. The position of the hands is a traditional Filipino practice, observed when arranging the corpse. The burial jar, which is unrivaled in the Southeast Asia and considered as the work of a master potter, signifies the belief of early Filipinos in life after death. Banga. Banga, meaning pot, is an earthen container originated from the northern Cordillera region of the Philippines, or NCR. The history of the Banga dance tells us the story of the Filipino women's strength, resilience, and grace.
This dance shows the elegant grace of the Igor tribe and the skill and strength of women. Traditionally, they're made of local clay found only in the colonial villages, an area rich with rice terraces and lush mountainsides. Made exclusively by colonial women, bangas were used for cooking, water, food storage, and bartering. One daily task was to fetch water from the lowlands to the highlands. The Banga dance is inspired by this daily routine. Stacked as many as 7 or 8 at a time, the pots are balanced on the heads of maidens as they trudge to the beat of the gangsa, or wind chimes, displaying their stamina and strength as they go about this daily task.
Now let's move on to the Spanish colonial tradition. When the Spaniards arrived in the Philippines in 1521, the colonizers used art as a tool to propagate the Catholic faith through beautiful images, to explain the concepts behind Catholicism, to tell the stories of Christ's life and passion. The propagation of Catholic faith could not have been successful without religious paintings, engravings, and sculpture, as well as devotional hymns and verses, the earliest example of literary and musical pieces to which the natives were exposed. Thus, by the middle of the 17th century, many natives began to produce poems, paintings, and musical composition. The concept of patronage emerged. Artisans were commissioned and paid to carve, engrave, and paint. They replaced the arts that were once done in a communal spirit and community setting for rituals. The church, particularly the friars, became the new patron of the arts. Since most art produced during the first 2 centuries of Spanish occupation were for the church, the friars enforced strict supervision over their production. Until the 19th century, art was only for the church and religious use. An example of the Spanish colonial tradition is the wall painting Langit, Lupa at Impiyerno. This is a 3-level mural located in San Cristobal Church. It shows the Holy Trinity, Mary the Mother of Christ, the saints, the 7 blessed sacraments, and a macabre depiction of hell. This wall painting was created by Joseph Luciano Danz, who is probably one of the earliest recorded painters in the Philippine art history. This born artist was known for fashioning his brushes out of cat's fur and for mixing pulverized volcanic ash with pigments for his paintings. Last but not the least, the St. Paul Metropolitan Cathedral. It is considered a major religious landmark not only of northern Luzon but the country as well. Overall, the cathedral follows a Baroque architectural design that has been modified by the Ilocanos to strengthen the structure against earthquakes. This is now known as the Earthquake Baroque. Testament to the style's effectivity is the fact that the structure's original interior walls have remained complete. It is also beside 2 plazas, one named after Vigan's founder, Plaza Salcedo, and another named after a revolutionary hero, Plaza Burgos. It shows how the central of the cathedral's role is not only in the religious life of the people, but the social, economic, educational, and political aspects as well. The American colonial and contemporary traditions in the Philippine visual arts. Filipinos struggled for independence, first in the revolution against Spain, and later in the war against the United States. While they succeeded in ridding themselves of the first colonizer in 1898, the new colonizer would set their government in place in 1901. The American colonial order defined its priorities as education and value formation, with both following the American way of life. It hastened to set up the public school system, and in the process transplanted images through the flooding of imported books and publications, leaving little demand for the native creativity in the graphic and publication arts. However, with the corporations, it emerged the need of advertising for commercial design, which eventually became integrated into the fine arts curriculum.
The earliest examples of the colonial art in America were religious in nature and often commissioned by the Catholic Church or the Protestant denominations. These works included paintings, sculptures, and decorative arts such as textiles and silverware. One example of the American colonial art, or we call as modern art, is the making of the Philippine flag, created by Fernando Amorsolo. The painting showed women, namely Marcelia Marino de Agoncillo, on the right side, refer as the mother of the Philippine flag. Fernando Amorsolo made this painting to show the citizen of the Philippines how the Philippine flag was made and to remind them the traditions and customs that we did not realize it becomes faded. Another example is Bayanihan by Carlos Potong Francisco. Bayanihan literally means being a bayan, and is thus used to refer to a spirit of communal unity and cooperation. But what is the message of the Bayanihan painting? The message it conveys means, we will carry your burden on our shoulders. And lastly, the contemporary arts. Contemporary art refers to the practice of art from 1970s to the present. Contemporary arts mirror contemporary culture and society. Diverse and emerging art practices were being introduced in this era. Many contemporary artists explore social and political issues, such as race, gender, sexuality, and globalization, while others focus on abstract or non-representational forms. One example is the Cinco Marias from the Tres Maria series by Federico Aguilar Cuas. Cinco Marias depicts the variety of domestic activities. This is a collection of 3 one-act plays which retell the stories of the 3 Philippine deities of the same name. Maria Cristina, the spirit of Maria Cristina Falls, Maria Cacao, the deity of Mount Lantoy, and Maria Makiling, the guardian of Mount Makiling. Another example is the art installation in Sand Dunes of Poway by Leroy New. This is a contemporary art project that brings together the natural beauty of the Poway sand dunes in Ilocos Norte, Philippines, with the creative vision of several Filipino artists. The project features a series of site-specific installations that are designed to blend seamlessly into the surrounding landscape, using materials and colors that reflect the unique character and texture of the sand dunes. This art installation of Leroy New was made for the La Milagrosa Festival in Ilocos Norte. According to Leroy New, the art installation symbolizes the great festivals, feasts, and celebrations. As a Filipino, it's important that we have knowledge to describe these art forms based on its details and elements in relation to our country's culture and tradition that makes it an artistic art piece. In the field of arts, knowing the elements and principles of art is important, not just to the artist, but also to the viewer. To have a deeper understanding of an artwork, let us know these elements and principles of arts. The elements of art contains the following: space, line, shape and form, color, value, and texture. Space in art refers to the area around the focal point of the art piece. Art pieces utilize space to highlight the focal point. Depending on the piece, there will be positives and negatives in the space around the focal point, shallows to deeps, open spaces, and closed spaces. Line. Line in art are generally formed by dot or a series of dots, which can be varied in thickness, color, and shape. You can think of a line as a 2-dimensional shape unless you give it volume or mass. Shape. Shape in art is commonly defined as an enclosed line. Its width and length determine shape, which can be anything from a triangle to a circle to a square. Form. Unlike shape in art, which is two-dimensional or flat, the form in art encloses volume and it has length, width, and height. This is how artists create realistic paintings, through the use of form. Color. Color in art includes hues, tones, tints, shades, values, durations, temperatures, and color combinations. As an element of art, color can be used in a variety of methods to create visually appealing pieces. In addition, the mood or atmosphere in an art piece is created using this element. Value. Value in art can reflect light and shadow in a painting. A painting's values can influence its structure and composition. Value can also create an illusion of depth, volume, and light. And last but not the least, texture. Texture in art is an object that represents its tactile quality. The texture evokes a sense of pleasure, discomfort, or familiarity, all of which can be used by artists to evoke emotional responses. As we proceed to the principles of arts, you guys must know that there's 7 principles of art, such as proportion, harmony, variety, movement, rhythm, balance, and emphasis. That is also the means an artist uses to organize elements within a work of art. These principles of arts also allow us to place some kind of objective reasoning behind why a great painting is great. Proportion. Proportion refers to the relationship of size of an element in the body of art. For example, when drawing a building and a human, the building must be bigger than a human so that it'll look great and perceptive. Harmony. The sense of continuity or similarity across an artwork that creates a connection and a flow of intent is called harmony. It is the most important and a very versatile principle of art. Variety. It consists of things that are different from each other. When an artist places different visual elements next to each other, he or she is using variety. For example, straight lines next to curvy lines. Movement. Movement adds excitement, drama, and overall compositional interest to an artwork. An artist can direct how a viewer's eye moves around an image by arranging its elements in a certain way. Rhythm. Rhythm is usually achieved through repetition of lines, shapes, colors, and more. It creates a visual tempo in artworks and provides a path for the viewer's eye to follow. Balance. The definition of balance in graphic design is the offsetting how the graphical weight of components balance with each other on either side of a design to create satisfaction, completion, and cohesion. It is also the most important principle to achieve unity and harmony. Emphasis. Emphasis is a principle which may refer to the greater impact given on a certain element. Now you may ask, what's the difference between the elements of art and the principles of arts? The elements of design are what we use to create a composition, while the principle of designs is how we use the elements. These elements and principles of arts are essential to understand the meaning of a piece of art clearly and deeply. In relation to that, diverse art forms in the Philippines convey its meaning through the elements and principles present to them. So as we describe some art forms from the various regions through the development of the Philippine arts, let's use the elements and principles of arts to understand it.
Art plays a significant role towards the development of our nation's cultural identity, from across different periods and eras and as a whole. Not just from different periods, but also from different regions. Remember, the Philippines is an archipelago country with over 7,000 islands, which is surely why you get now why the Philippine arts is so diverse.